Female love operates on a fundamentally different wavelength than masculine love. Where a man's affection grows through consistent effort and loyalty, a woman's love follows a more fluid, emotional path. It's not a transaction where input equals output. You can't earn her love through sheer devotion alone.
Nice.
In fact, the more you try to logic your way into her heart with over-the-top gestures or relentless attention, the faster her attraction evaporates. This isn't because women are fickle or cruel, it's because female desire thrives on mystery and emotional chemistry, not predictability. A woman falls in love with how you make her feel, not with a checklist of what you do for her. When you're too available, too eager, too transparent, you remove the very elements that fuel her fascination. She doesn't want to own you. To discover you, she doesn't want a man who molds himself to her whims. She wants one who stands firm in his own energy, making her lean in to understand him. The irony is that men often misinterpret this dynamic. When they sense her pulling away, they double down on affection, thinking, if I just love her harder, she'll love me back. But this approach backfires because it shifts the power imbalance suddenly. She's the prize and you're the beggar. Female attraction flourishes when a man remains centered in his own purpose, not when he orbits around her emotions. She wants to feel like she's choosing you, not that you're desperately trying to convince her. This is why the nice guy often finishes last, not because women dislike kindness, but because relentless pleasing signals a lack of masculine core. A woman's love isn't sparked by a man who prioritizes her happiness above his own boundaries. It's sparked by a man who makes her feel safe through his strength, not his submission. She needs to sense that you're solid enough to handle her emotional waves without drowning in them. The key isn't to withhold love, but to offer it from a place of wholeness, not neediness. When you're secure in yourself, your love becomes a gift, not a bargaining chip. That's when she relaxes into femininity, when she trusts that your devotion isn't fragile, that your presence isn't negotiable. Female love isn't about control. It's about surrender. But that surrender only happens when she respects the man standing in front of her. And respect can't be bought with attention. It's earned through unwavering self-assurance. The journey of female love unfolds in 3 distinct yet interconnected stages, each requiring a different masculine approach. The first stage, fascination, where initial attraction takes root not through overt pursuit, but through subtle magnetism. Women are drawn to men who carry an air of quiet confidence, whose presence speaks louder than their words. This is where most men make their first mistake by rushing the process, bombarding her with compliments and declarations too soon. But fascination grows in the spaces between interactions, in the moments she spends wondering about you. It's not about proving your worth. It's about revealing it gradually, letting her curiosity build naturally. The man who understands this doesn't force connection, creates the conditions for it to blossom. Testing is the second and most crucial phase, where women unconsciously assess a man's strength of character. She may create distance, express doubts, or challenge your boundaries, not to push you away, but to confirm you're someone worth surrendering to. This is where weak men crumble, scrambling to reassure her, or worse, becoming angry at her hesitation. But the man who remains unshaken, who meets her uncertainty with calm assurance, passes the test in ways words never could. Her tests aren't malicious, they're her way of feeling safe. When you react with emotional stability rather than panic, she begins to trust you on a primal level. This stage separates temporary infatuation from genuine emotional investment. The final stage, surrender, is where her love becomes steadfast, but only if you've navigated the first 2 phases correctly. This isn't submission out of obligation, but a willing yielding to your leadership. She stops questioning and starts trusting, not because you've convinced her, but because you've demonstrated through consistent action that you're a man who can handle her depth. This is where real intimacy begins, where her love transforms from fleeting emotion to unshakable devotion. But surrender isn't the finish line, it's the beginning of a deeper dance. The man who grows complacent here will watch that hard-won trusty road. True mastery means maintaining the qualities that earned her surrender in the first place. Your purpose, your boundaries, your unwavering center. These three stages aren't linear. They cycle throughout a relationship, with each new level of connection bringing fresh tests and deeper surrender. The man who understands this doesn't fear the process. He guides it. Polarity is the invisible current that electrifies female attraction. The magnetic push and pull between masculine presence and feminine response. Women don't fall for men who mirror their emotions. They're drawn to those who provide contrast. When a man becomes overly accommodating, agreeing with every opinion and molding himself to her moods, he extinguishes the spark of desire. True polarity emerges when he remains rooted in his own energy, creating space for her femininity to flourish. This doesn't mean being cold or indifferent, but rather maintaining an emotional independence that allows her to feel free in her expression without the burden of leading the relationship. Emotional tension is often misunderstood as drama, but it's actually the lifeblood of lasting attraction. Women crave moments of anticipation, the subtle uncertainty of where they stand. Not because you're playing games, but because you're too engaged in your own purpose to constantly reassure them. This tension isn't about manipulation, it's about presence. When a man is fully alive in his mission, he naturally becomes less predictable. That mystery keeps her emotionally invested. She doesn't want a man who's always available. She wants one whose depth she can't fully unravel. The key is balance. Too much distance creates anxiety, but too much familiarity breeds indifference. The feminine spirit thrives in motion, not stagnation. A woman's love deepens when she senses evolution in her man, when he challenges her intellectually, surprises her with his growth, and refuses to settle into complacency. This is why routines eventually dull passion unless they're punctuated by spontaneity. Polarity isn't static. It requires continuous cultivation. A man who remains the same, offering no new layers to discover, will watch her interest wane. But the man who evolves while staying true to his core becomes an endless source of fascination. Ultimately, polarity and tension aren't tactics. They're byproducts of a man who lives with intention. When he prioritizes his purpose, maintains his boundaries, and engages with her from a place of fullness rather than need, she's free to love him without reservation. Her emotions will ebb and flow, but his steady presence ensures she always finds her way back. The dance of attraction isn't about control. It's about creating the conditions where her love can't help but follow. The fastest way to kill a woman's attraction is by violating the unspoken laws of feminine desire. Men often believe love is earned through grand gestures and relentless devotion, but these very actions suffocate the mystery that fuels her passion. One critical mistake is overgiving, flooding her with attention, gifts, or affection before she's emotionally invested. This doesn't make her cherish you, it makes you predictable. Generosity only holds value when it's selective, not when it's desperate. A man who gives everything up front leaves nothing to be discovered. And without curiosity, her interest withers. Another fatal error is seeking reassurance. The moment you ask, "Do you still love me?" or "Are we okay?" you transfer power to her and reveal your insecurity. Women don't fall for men who need constant validation. They're drawn to those who operate from quiet certainty. If you've chosen her, let your actions, not your anxious questions, communicate that. Her respect for you diminishes each time you look to her for emotional stability rather than providing it yourself. Reacting to her moods is equally destructive. When a woman withdraws or tests you, it's not a signal to chase harder, it's an invitation to hold your frame. If she senses her emotional storms can shake your foundation, she unconsciously loses attraction.
Our women
Don't want to lead the relationship. They want to trust that their man won't be derailed by temporary turbulence. The man who remains calm when she's emotional, who doesn't take her fluctuations personally, becomes her anchor. Finally, making her the center of your universe is romantic in theory but disastrous in practice. When a man abandons his mission, friendships, or self-respect to prioritize her above all else, he becomes less of a man she admires and more of a dependent she pities. A woman wants to join your journey, not become it. If she feels responsible for your happiness, her attraction, turns to resentment. The irony. The less you need her, the more she'll want you. Not because you're indifferent, but because you're complete. And that's the man she chooses to love, not the one she feels obligated to comfort. The path to unshakable love isn't found in grand gestures or relentless pursuit. It's forged in the quiet confidence of a man who knows his worth. Women don't fall for what you do. They fall for who you are when you're not trying to impress them. This is why the most powerful love grows when a man remains anchored in his purpose, unfazed by the temporary storms of emotion. She doesn't need you to be perfect. She needs you to be solid. When you stand firm in your values, unshaken by her doubts or the chaos of the world, she discovers a rare kind of safety, one that lets her surrender to love without fear. True. Masculine leadership isn't about control. It's about direction. A woman's deepest devotion emerges when she feels guided, not governed. She wants to trust that wherever you're leading, it's worth following. This means making decisions with conviction, not hesitation. It means setting boundaries not to punish, but to protect the integrity of the connection. When you speak, less but mean more. When your presence carries weight without demanding attention. She leans in closer not because you asked, but because she can't help it. The paradox of feminine love is that it flourishes most when you're willing to let it go. The man who clings too tightly smothers the very spark he's trying to keep alive. But the man who maintains his independence, who loves deeply yet remains whole without her, becomes irresistible. This isn't about playing games. It's about embodying a truth. Your value isn't determined by her affection. When she sees that your world doesn't revolve around her, she's free to choose you without pressure. And that choice becomes the foundation of something real. In the end, the secret isn't in changing yourself to keep her love, it's in being so fully yourself that the right love stays. Women don't want a man who molds to their every whim. They want one whose strength invites them to soften, that they rooted in your purpose, led without apology, and let love find its place in your life, not as the goal, but as the natural result of a man who knows where he's going. That's how love becomes unshakable.